Hey guys, I'm Steven.
And I'm David, and we're second-year medical students in San Antonio, Texas. I'm originally from Houston, Texas.
I'm from Dallas. And today we're going to show you guys how to make some delicious stuff. First, we've got some braised beef short ribs, along with a sweet potato and acorn squash bake, we'll call it. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, so here's our backyard. As you can see, we've got a small little garden patch, which we got some squash and tomatoes hopefully going to grow. For the braise itself, I'm just going to little thyme over here and maybe a couple of bay leaves will work. Snag some rosemary as well.
To start out, future surgeon Stephen Underberg will be guiding you through the process of browning and braising the ribs.
Alright, thanks David. Alright, first to start off, we've got some pretty solid looking beef short ribs that I got at the farmer's market downtown a few weekends ago. And the reason I really like short ribs, or any cut of meat that's usually pretty tough, like brisket or shin or shoulder, is that typically these meats are sort of worked more while the animal's alive, and so it develops a lot of collagen and a lot of connective tissue, which if you're trying to cook it quickly is going to make the meat really, really tough. If you cook it really slowly in what we call a braise, which I'm going to demonstrate, you actually allow enough time to heat the meat through, and it actually ends up melting the fat and the collagen and connective tissue. Gives you a really, really juicy, delicious meal, and it's a pretty cheap piece of meat as well, so it kind of works on both ends. So first what we're going to do is season up the meat pretty liberally with a lot of salt. Now I've got my pan really hot here on medium-high heat. I'm just going to add some fat to it. A lot of you guys know about this. The grass-fed ghee is pretty solid, so I'm going to use this as my fat source. And then just sort of add in the short ribs. And actually the really important thing, and probably one of the most important aspects of this dish, is the browning process. For a little science lesson. And basically what's happening is it's sort of the meat equivalent of caramelization, whereas caramelization just has to deal with carbohydrates. Browning has to do with carbohydrates as well as proteins. And it's sort of that interaction between the carbohydrates with the amino acids, where you actually get sulfur and nitrogen added to the complexes, and so you're forming more aromatic flavors, and it actually enhances the flavor of the meat dramatically. So it's really, really important. So we'll let that work on that one side. The reason I really like to braise, especially since I don't have too much time in between class and a lot of work studying and exercise. The nice thing is once you get this down, it doesn't take too long to prepare. And once you stick it in the oven, you can go off, do whatever you want for 3-4 hours, come back, and it's just going to be really, really tasty. So you can use this technique and make 100 different products. You can add chipotles, chocolate and cinnamon, you get more of a mole. You can add lemongrass and kaffir lime and some other Asian herbs to give you more of an Asian braise. But as I mentioned, this is more going to be your typical Italian, French, I guess, type of braise we have here. What we have here, it's called a mirepoix. It's French cuisine, but it's basically just onions, carrots, celery. You basically just want to add anything to the liquid that's going to enhance the flavor. Just going to finish chopping up a couple more of these ingredients just to finish off with the carrots. It doesn't really matter how small you cut them, since you're going to be cooking the liquid and the meat for about 3 hours. You know, even if you slice them in big chunks like that, it's not going to really make a huge difference. It just kind of depends on what you want to do. So we got about, I don't know, half an onion, maybe 2/3 of the whole onion, a couple carrots, and a couple celery stalks that we're going to use for the vegetables. which should be enough. The amount of meat we have there is probably good to feed 2 people, maybe 3 unless you're a greedy person, and then maybe 2. So I've actually was introduced to primal eating about a year ago through my CrossFit gym. It was actually interesting in class when we had all the biochemistry lectures, being able to correlate that into sort of what I was learning with the whole evolutionary fitness and nutrition, how that relates to health. So I'm a big fan of how nutrition can really impact your health, which is been really interesting to me. David on the other side of the camera here, I don't know if you want to tell your story about how you got involved.
So my family has a history of celiac disease, so we have an intolerance to anything containing gluten, wheat, barley, rye. So my mom and my sister both have it. I have the gene for it. I have half of the gene for it. So it's advised to stay away from gluten. So I've been trying to pursue that as best as possible. The gluten component from the endosperm of a seed, which typically gives bread its stickiness and everything. When it hits the duodenum and the jejunum of your intestine, there's an autoimmune reaction that takes place where your body gets angry at it and starts attacking its own cells, and have a lot of malabsorption problems, and you're not able to absorb iron, and you get anemic and all this unpleasant stuff. Anyways, that's a lot of information, but that's a lot of my drive.
Alright, so we've got our meat pretty much brown. This is basically what I'm talking about. You really want to develop that flavor. What you're going to want to do is remove the meat from the pan. If you had a lot more short ribs to do, then you'd do this in separate batches and keep kind of doing this to brown up all the meat nicely. The other important point to mention is that at the bottom of this pan is what we call the fond. Basically all these nice flavorful bits, you want to hold on to those. When you deglaze the pan, those will all come up and really add a lot of depth and flavor. So we're just going to add our veggies into the mix. Just add another spoonful. And just like the meat, you really want to get these guys some nice color on them. Just gonna develop and enhance the flavor. David talking about celiac disease actually reminded me one of the most common anemias that you find today is from iron deficiency. And humans absorb iron in our duodenal area of our small intestine, and that's actually where celiac disease causes a lot of the issues with inflammation. And so people with celiac disease tend to also have iron deficiency anemia because you can't have that iron being absorbed when your gut's all messed up in the first place. So, alright. So our vegetables getting nice and soft here. Next we're going to add some tomato paste. Basically just going to add a lot of flavor and even some extra depth to the dish. It's about a tablespoon. You really sort of want to caramelize and turn the tomato paste almost into a bronze color, which is going to even enhance the flavor of it more. And the nice thing about this as well is it tastes even better the following day. So if you're having people over Friday or Saturday night, make this the day before and refrigerate it. And so that way, day of the party, all you basically have to do is reheat this and it'll taste better. So now we've got the vegetables and tomato paste looking pretty solid. Next component is going to be the wine. For this one, I'm going to go with red wine, red meat. This kind of makes sense. You basically just want to use anything that you enjoy drinking yourself. Definitely don't use cooking wine. And this is leftover from last night's dinner. So just whatever you have around that you enjoy drinking, feel free to use. It'll be perfect. Just add about maybe a glassful. That's about a glassful for a healthy individual. And then when that's happening, then you're going to use that liquid to really scrape the bottom of the pan and get all those bits off that we were talking about earlier. And just let it go, let it reduce, the alcohol burn away so you can enhance the flavor of the wine. Alright, so if you look at what we got here, basically the wine has completely reduced down, which is exactly what we're looking for. Now I'm just going to chop a little bit of garlic to add. I'm adding it now and not earlier, just because garlic tends to burn pretty easily. And that is no bueno, because that gets pretty bitter. So we're just going to add it towards the end now to get that flavor we're looking for without the burn. So just add that to the pot. And then the last few things we're going to add are some canned whole roasted tomatoes. These ones in particular from the San Marzano region, they're a little pricier. So if you don't want to spend the extra cash, don't worry about it, but they do tend to have a little bit better flavor to them than just sort of your regular tomato. So just add in a couple of those, maybe a little bit of the liquid from that. Perfect. Alright, that's exactly what we're looking for. Nice thick sauce that will end up sort of tweaking towards the end, right before we finish our meal. So I'm just going to add, I'm not even going to bother peeling this stuff or chopping it up, just put it in whole. The leaves will fall off by the end of the cooking process, and then you can just pull the stems out at the end. So once you've done that, just return your short ribs back to the dish and just kind of place them how you will. Just get them all nice and loving up on one another. And then any juices left over from the plates as well. Alright, so that looks pretty good. I don't really want to cover them completely at the top. Just sort of halfway is perfect. Basically what ends up happening is the collagen and the connective tissue that I was talking about starts to melt at about 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And sort of the longer you keep the meat up at that temperature and the more slowly you bring it up to that 140 degrees and maintain it there, and the more that collagen is going to melt, the more the muscle is going to relax, and it's just going to become a lot juicier than if you were to bring this up to a complete boil and put it on full whack, 400 degrees or something for less time. So it's really important to be patient and take your time with this dish, because the results are going to be worth it. So we have our oven preheated at about 350 degrees. But we're just going to throw this guy in here. Yeah, and then just set your timer. It's about 5:48. So in about 3.5 hours, we'll go and check on that and see how it goes. Alright.